to do now. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Jukebox in the corner taking me for a ride. Into the motion, we're exploding out of trouble inside. You wanna roll with me? We're gonna feel the beat. Show 'em how to do that thing. You know what to do now. Tonight the stars are out, so let's paint the town. I'm running when I hit the ground. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Into the city, I feel lighter than smoke. Above the traffic, everybody better look out below. I got somewhere to be. Time got away from me. Too busy feeling free. It's all I can do now. Tonight the stars are out, so let's paint the town. I'm running when I hit the ground. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. My heart is pumping and my hips are twisting. Oh, I wanna scream and make everyone listen. All the way to the world, all the way I prefer to be right here where I am. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. Tonight the stars are out, so let's make the town. I'm running when I hit the ground. That's what I'm all about. Tonight the stars are out, so let's make the town. I'm running when I hit the ground. That's what I'm all about. I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
I'm having the time of my life. Everything is going alright. Ooh, I just made them look twice. This is how it feels when you living that good, good life. I'm just living that good, good life. I'm just living that good, good life. I'm just living that good, good life. Good, good life. I'ma do me, I can't do it no different. Gold shades tinted, yeah, I got the right vision, yeah. I won't let you down, we about to paint the town. Got the people all around, we been surfing on the crown, yeah. We them cool kids with the roof down. Yeah, we let loose, so lighten up, break the rules now. Yeah, we wild out the house with the tunes loud. On top of the clouds, looking round. Yo, how we ever getting down? Oh, I'm just going with the flow. Hey, you just gotta let me know. I think that it's about that time to go. One time for the gram, no. Go ahead, strike the pose. Got the city on lock. They ain't seen nothing like it. Got the whole spot popping. Ooh, it gets so exciting. Had the time of your life. Can I get that in writing? Hey, and tell them everybody invited. I'm having the time of my life. Everything is going alright. Ooh, I just made them look twice. This is how it feels when you living that good, good life. I'm just living that good, good life. I'm just living that good, good life. I'm just living that good, good life. Good, good life. It's not exaggerated, I just had to say it. Look how we graduated. I'm so glad you made it, cause we got all that we wanted. Couldn't hate if they wanted to. We live it without a limit. Yeah, we do what we wanna do now. Throw your hands up one time. They think that we lost our minds. Well, maybe we did. Maybe that's just how we live. Maybe that's all that we want. Maybe it is what it is. Cause we're just living our life. That's the life we're living. We're just living our life. That's a life. I'm having the time of my life. 'cause I can feel it coming. 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 Walk in your rainbow paradise. Strawberry lipstick, state of mind. I get so lost inside your eyes. Would you believe it? You don't have to say love. You don't have to say nothing. You don't have to say you're mine, honey. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you, oh honey. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you. It's the only thing I'll ever do. It's the only thing I'll ever do. Just wander under summer skies. Brown skin, red over eye. Would you believe it? Come on. You don't have to say love. I just wanna tell you something. Lately you've been on my mind, honey. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you, oh honey. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you. Like it's the only thing I'll ever do. Like it's the only thing I'll ever do. Benji, give us something. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore. Oh, nah. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you. Like it's the only thing I'll ever do. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you. Oh, honey. Walk through fire for you. Just let me adore you. Like it's the only thing I'll ever do. Like it's the only thing I'll ever do. Like it's the only thing I'll ever do.
Holy cow. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Athens Church. We are kicking off a brand new series today called Love Dates and Heartbreaks, and it's going to be awesome. Desi is going to sing the whole Harry Styles record, and then we're going to go. So it's going to be a great day at church. I don't know where you fall on the spectrum of life and relationships. You know, if you're a college student, you're required to come to all 6 weeks of the series. But like, I'm married, 3 kids. It's starting to get pretty serious, I guess you could say. And but I think this series is going to be really good for us old folks as well. So hey, there's a lot happening around here in the next week or two. I want to make sure you're on top of everything. The first thing is this Friday night is the inaugural, the first ever Athens Church Volunteer Summit. Can we just give a shout out to the volunteers of Athens Church making this place happen week in and week out. So if you serve on a Sunday morning, if you lead a small group, you're invited Friday night. Hopefully you should have already gotten RSVP. If not, reach out to somebody who leads one of your environments and get you a link. But it's going to be awesome. Just a chance to invest in you, to pour into you, and just talk about kind of some exciting stuff in this next season of our church. There's a guy by the name of John Tyson, a special guest coming. He's the pastor of Church of the City in New York. Honestly, of all the preachers and pastors in America, one of the guys I look up to the most. I can't believe he's going to be here in 5 days. So if you are a volunteer around here, please plan on being here with us Friday night. If you do not serve, but you have been looking to get involved serving, you've also come at a great time, because the way you do that is at an event we call Backstage Pass, and the next one is conveniently 2 weeks from today. So it's a Sunday morning thing. You would get to pick whether you do Backstage Pass at 9:15 or 11, but literally it is what it sounds like. You get to tour behind the scenes and check out all the different environments of Athens Church, from the babies in Wombaland all the way up to high schoolers and leading a college group and things like that, and ultimately decide if one of those might be right for you. So if you are not serving and you think you'd like to do that step, go on our website, go to AthensChurch.com/backstage pass and sign up to be a part of that in 2 weeks. Honestly, nothing to lose. You can just kind of check it out. And serving really is the fastest way to get to know people around here, and definitely the easiest way in all of Athens to get a free donut or a free bagel. So breakfast on Sundays is covered with us. Honestly, it might just be a budget decision for you. You know, it's like, babe, we need to start serving, save a little bit of money on the breakfast category. But it is fun to just to be a part, right? Not just show up at church, but get to be a part. And lastly, last thing, if you are looking to get connected, and a good first step is always coming on Sunday mornings, we have these thing called small groups, and 10 people, 10, 12 people, maybe 6, 7 couples meeting in homes, on the back porch, whatever, for community, right? To talk about life, to talk about what's going on Sunday, to grow in your faith together. And if something like that interests you, today is your day, because tonight all of our new small groups form, and a lot of you have already signed up for your group online. Tonight is how you meet your group. So if you signed up for a group and you're an adult, you come back at 6. If you're a college student, you come back at 8 o'clock to meet your group. If you're like, hold on, I want friends and I missed the memo, go on our website, because you have until 1 o'clock to sign up for your group, and you can meet your group literally tonight. If you're a college student or adult, you literally get to pick. You pick what night of the week you want to meet on. You pick one of the type of people you're looking for, and there's groups for a whole lot of people. So that's tonight. Hope you'll consider that. But today's going to be fun. We're going to sing a few songs together, and then no doubt the highlight of the morning is you get to hear Shelby's story as she goes public with her faith and baptism, which is going to be really cool. So why don't you do this? Why don't you say hey to the people around you, stand up, and tell them which one of these 3 words best describes you right now: love, dates, or heartbreaks.
Good morning, Athens Church. Let's dive right in, shall we? Who am I that the highest will welcome? I was lost, but he brought me. His love for me. Oh, his love for me. When the sun sets free, oh,
that. We believe that's who we are today. It's who we are. So let's look to God today for who he is. Let's start right here. Sing Behold, the Father's heart. We sing. Behold, the Father's heart. The mystery he lavishes on is deep, cries out to deep, how desperately he wants us. Things of earth stand next to him. Things of earth stand next to him, like a candle to the sun. Unfailing Father, what compares to his great love? Sing of the Son, Jesus, come on. Behold his holy Son, the Lion and the Lamb given to us. The Word became a man, my soul shall know its Savior. Forsaken for the sake of all mankind, salvation is in his blood. Jesus Messiah, the righteous died for all. Come on, but the story doesn't end there. We sing, and it wasn't over. He is the risen one. Yes, this sings my soul. This sings my soul. How great your love is. How great, and how great your love is. Yeah. This sings my soul. This sings my soul. How great your love is. Thank you, Father. How great your love is. This sings my soul. Behold, I have a friend, the Spirit breathing holy fire within, my ever-present help, speaking truth when I can't find it. Oh, light up this broken heart and light my way till my time on earth is done. Oh, Holy Spirit, breathe in me like kingdom come. We cry out, oh, Holy Spirit, sing. Oh, Holy Spirit, let your word in so thankful to celebrate God's love today. That's what this series is all about, is really coming back to the source of love in itself, and that's our Heavenly Father. Thank you all for singing about it. Thank you for celebrating it with us. At this time, you can have a seat, and as you do, we're going to get to hear Shelby's story together.
Hi, I'm Shelby Gilmore, and I'm a senior at UGA. I grew up with parents who were religious, but not outwardly. My mom believed in God, but didn't believe in going to church, and my dad grew up in church and prayed silently to himself at meals and whatnot. When I was in middle school, I would go to wildlife events with friends, but it wasn't really until my older sister got married that I started to go to church more often than once a year. I went with my sister to church every few weeks just for something to do, but it never really clicked because I felt like everyone had already learned all the basic Bible stuff, and I was just really behind. That continued through high school, and while I believed in God, I still didn't really feel a connection to Him. I felt that I had started wanting a connection with God a little too late in the game, and that all the groups had been solidified. I told myself that I would start going to church and jump into faith once college started because then everyone would be new. In August of 2017, I moved to Athens to start college. I immediately started going to Athens Church and joined a small group with Freshly. Because I was a freshman though and didn't have a car, I couldn't always make it to church. The summer after sophomore year, I stayed in Athens and had my own car with me. I started going to church alone, regardless of who could join me. I sat alone at church all summer and eventually decided to join a small group. That summer was when I really began an intimate relationship with God that wasn't dependent on other people. I finally felt that personal connection to Jesus and decided to fully give my life to Him. That small group wasn't the one for me, but I knew God was trying to really show me what community could be like. I then joined the small group I'm in now, and I have loved every minute of it. Even during quarantine, we still met virtually and did a Bible study together. We do fun events together and have established friendships rooted in God. I feel like since then, I just know how to give things to God and just take things in His time. I've found more friends in my journey with God than I had ever thought possible, and I really believe it has made my college experience. I'm here today to tell everyone that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior.
Shelby, your story is just so beautiful. And there's a theme that runs through your story, and that's courage. There's a lot of people in this room that can relate to your story, feeling behind, feeling like it's not clicking, feeling like an outsider in Christianity. And you didn't let that stop you. You kept pursuing God. That takes courage. And then you kept coming to church, and you finally got a car, and you were coming by yourself. You're coming alone. And that takes a lot of courage, and God honored that, and you found community here. You got into a group, and that was a courageous step to take, and that one didn't work out, but you didn't throw the towel in. You knew God had more for you, and so you stepped into another group, and you're experiencing a community like you've never experienced before. You're experiencing intimacy with God like you never have before. It's because you took steps of courage. And right now, you're taking another step by telling everyone in this room that you love Jesus, telling the whole world that you're going to spend the rest of your days following Him. And that is amazing. So thank you for modeling the way for us today. Thank you for showing us what it means to take courageous steps, even when it doesn't make sense, even when it's not easy. And so it is my honor and privilege to baptize you in the name of the Father who loves you, the Son who gave His life for you, and the Spirit who lives inside of you. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Hey, you guys can grab a seat. Shelby, that was incredible. I love that she put herself back out there for groups because we don't always operate that way in life, right? And we try something one time, it doesn't work, and we just sort of bail, right? I mean, you go to Orange Theory one time, you're like, I don't look any different. I'm out, Cancel subscription. No judgment. I mean, I walked out of a spin class, mid-class one time recently. Well, here's the thing. They're like, oh, you ride your bike or whatever. No, you don't ride your bike. They want you to stand up the whole time in front of your bike, which is not what we signed up for in the deal, but that has nothing to do with church today. I'm just spiraling. But, there's other times in your life, right, where you do, right? I mean, somebody breaks up with you and you're like, you got a new boyfriend by the end of the night and your friend's like, how did she pull that off, And what Shelby chose to do was operate with that same sort of resilience and persistence when it comes to community in her life. And the scriptures are so clear. Like, there's a God equation, obviously, to all the good things that happen in our life. But your personal persistence pays off, right? Especially when it comes to seeking God and when it comes to the things of him. And she didn't let fear or a bad experience in the past or just something not working out stop her from doing that. And I think that's a message for somebody here today. Because you've been burned by church before, or you had a bad group experience one time in high school, and now you're like not gonna do groups again for the rest of your life or something. And I think the word for you today would be to put yourself back out there, right? To be persistent. If you want to grow in your faith, you're going to need to take a step like that to join a group or get involved serving some. Her testimony kind of speaks for itself, but if you want to do that, you have to 1 o'clock today. In just a second, we're going to have a moment to give this morning's offering, but there is a special kind of group that actually starts in 2 weeks. And I bring it up at this time because we're talking about giving our offering. For some of us, this is like a joyful time of the service to get to give back to our local church to help support the mission of our church in the city. But for others of us, the financial part of our life is a disappointing one. It's someone we don't like talking about. You feel lost in this area of your life. You feel frustrated when it comes to your finances. And if that's you, it doesn't have to be that way. If that's you, I want to strongly encourage you to take part in something we call Financial Peace University. And FPU is about a 2-month thing. It happens, a course taught via video by Dave Ramsey, happens here at the church on Sunday afternoons. And truly, honestly, we have seen so many people go from being absolutely hopeless and no plan in their finances to having a plan for their finances they can actually execute and feel good about. And because of that, they pay off a lot of debt and save a lot of money, and that could be your story. Now, when I say that, a lot of you would go, man, it sounds cool, I should probably do that. I don't have, time to do that. And what you know to be true, and what I know to be true is this, that we make time in life for the things that are important to us. And if this is an important part of your life that you know is past time to get sorted out, I want to encourage you to make it a priority to be a part of Financial Peace, to go ahead and sign up now online. It starts in 2 weeks, to make whatever sacrifice or kind of adjustments to your schedule you need to so you can be a part of it. And when our group starts, and it's going to meet on Sunday afternoons in a couple weeks, there will be a group of people there who made some sacrifices, who made some adjustments in their schedule to be a part of it. But those are a group of people who decided this was important to me because of where I've been or whatever I'm stepping into. And honestly, like Financial Peace is really good for anybody who's in a transition season. I tell people this all the time. If you're a college student about to graduate, if you're about to get married, if you're about to have kids, if your kids are just leaving the house, if you're stepping into any sort of change in your life that's going to affect your budget, Financial Peace is the perfect time to do that, to help you get a plan and some confidence going into that. So if you are somebody who takes that step, I guarantee you won't regret it. It feels so good to have that part of your life under control. So the church doesn't get anything from that. I hope you know that. Like, that's just something we offer for you. And if you know somebody in the community, you don't have to be an Athens church person to be a part of Financial Peace. If you just know, another couple who could benefit, if you know another, senior who's about to graduate college and could benefit from this, invite them to come be a part of it. It's really cool. So, hey, I want to pray for you. We'll have our moment to give our offering, and then we're going to jump into part 1 of this fantastic new series with our teaching pastor, Andy Stanley. So let's pray together, okay? God, thank you for the courage that we now have all seen in Shelby's story. I thank you even just for what she told me not too long ago about how that season of coming to church by herself in the summer was actually maybe the most spiritually enriching one of her life. Because she could just be here in this room hearing from you. And I pray other people would have that experience today. Maybe somebody who came by themselves, maybe somebody who's here who the church is the last place they thought they would be this weekend. But here they are. And I pray you would speak to them. Use the words that Andy's about to say to speak to them, to show them something practical they can do with their life to improve their life and walk a little closer with you. And we pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, today we're kicking off our brand new series that I'm super excited about, Love Dates and Heartbreaks. And as we jump into this real quick, I want to tell you who this is for. This is for students who want to date and hope to date. This is for graduates who want to date and hope to date. This is for singles who are dating. This is for married people who are trying to make their marriages better. This is for people who used to be married and are jumping back into the scary, awful aquarium of dating where it just seems so complicated. It's not like it was when you were 18 and you're trying to figure that out. So this series is really for anybody who's in a romantic relationship, wants to be in a romantic relationship, hopes to be, and is trying to figure it out. And the thing is, I don't have to tell you this, it's complicated. It's complicated when you're 13, it's complicated when you're 16, it's complicated when you're 26, 36, or 56. And one of the reasons that I'm super excited about this series as well is this series gives me an opportunity to talk about something that breaks my heart. And, a few years ago, I challenged you. I said, hey, what breaks your heart? Because sometimes when people answer the question, what breaks my heart, it leads to extraordinary change and extraordinary things in culture. And one of the things that breaks my heart has to do with what we're going to talk about. Because watching people make relationship decisions that undermine their relationships, that just breaks my heart. I mean, watching people make decisions about their own relationships, whether it's marriage or dating or whatever it might be, that I know, and I'm not super dialed in. I mean, most people would watch them and think, oh no, you're going to do what? Watching people make what's already complicated more complicated, making relationships that are already complicated more complicated, that just breaks my heart. There is already enough, isn't this true? There's enough unavoidable pain in the world. The last thing we need to do is to add to it with our own decisions. And like you, it's not just me. Sometimes I watch people and I think, have you thought that through? I mean, have you really thought that through? Or have you really ever seen that work out anywhere else with anybody else? I mean, it works out on Netflix, but I mean, in the real world, have you ever seen that actually work out in a real relationship, right? You've had these same thoughts, or I think, has no one warned you about this? I mean, did your mama not warn you, or your grandmama, or your dad, or a friend, or a roommate? I mean, am I the only one trying to get in your way to say, hey, you need to think this through? And so it breaks my heart to see people unnecessarily complicate their future relationships with current relationships, or to complicate a current relationship with just a bad relationship decision. And I'll tell you who else I'm excited about this series, to be a part of this series, are those of you that are dating and you're kind of serial daters. In fact, you don't even like the word date. For you, if a date doesn't end with sex, you just chalk it up to a loss. You're just in that place where you're like, one day, someday I'm gonna settle down, but that's one day, someday, it's not this day. In fact, you don't even really call it dates. That's something your parents did. It's kind of a dark ages thing. But you're in a season of life and you're not ashamed of it, you're not bashful about it. This is just where you are, where it's kind of a use them and lose them, kind of rotate through, and you're not always honest, and you don't always follow through, and yeah, I'll call you, I'll text you, and you never do, and hey, is it okay? Yeah, you go ahead, but then you're just in that world where you're just kind of playing the game, and that's your business because it's your life, but I just got to tell you, and you may not care, but that's heartbreaking to me too. And the reason it's heartbreaking to me is, and you don't have to believe this, is you're hurting you and you're hurting somebody else. And here's what I know about you, even though we've never met. You don't want to hurt yourself, and you don't want to hurt other people. In fact, if I were to confront you, you would say, no, it's consensual. I'm not hurting anybody. But there's such thing as consensual hurt, like we're going to both agree to hurt each other. I mean, it's consensual, but if it's consensual and it still hurts a person, come on, it just still hurts a person. And you don't want to do that. And here's the other thing that concerns me about you, if that's the season of life you're in. I don't want you to be, and I made this up, so I don't know if this is like a real thing. I don't want you to be a liar for life. I don't want you to be a liar for life when it comes time to tell your story. Because what you're doing right now morally and what you're doing right now relationally, these are chapters of your story. And they are permanent parts of your story. And one day, believe it or not, somebody's going to want to hear your story, and you're going to want to hear somebody else's story. And depending on what you do now, you're going to be tempted to lie about parts of your story. And you're going to be a liar for life because you're going to have a secret, or you're going to have a series of secrets, or a season of life you don't want to talk about. And when it gets to that season, you're going to kind of, smooth over it a little bit. And I've talked to too many women, guys, who married a guy and he told about half the story. And a year later, she found out the whole story. Or 15 years later, she found out the rest of the story. And she's broken and she's heartbroken because she didn't get a chance to choose you with your whole story because you lied about your story. And the reason you lied about your story, just to use an old-fashioned word, is you were ashamed of your story. You were embarrassed by your story. And here's the thing, I'm not getting on you. I don't want you to write an embarrassing story. I don't want you to write a story you're embarrassed about. I want you to write a good story. I want you to be in Walmart one day with your wife and you see that guy you used to date, ladies, and you don't say, hey, let's check out the toy aisle. We don't even have any kids, I know, but I think we should check out the toy aisle for just a moment, you know? I want you to say, hey, this is my husband. And then when you walk off, you say, yeah, I used to date him in college. He was a great guy. Yeah, we dated a little bit in high school. She was just a fantastic person. Didn't work out, but she was just great. That's a good story. I want you to write a good story. And let me tell you another good story. Another good story is this. Hey, when I was in my 20s, I fooled around, I played around. But on this particular date and this particular year, when I was this particular age, I decided to move in a different direction. And since that time, I've lived differently. I've lived in a different direction. Yeah, when I was 45, I went through a terrible divorce. And after the divorce, I went a little bit crazy, me and the girls. I mean, we just went kind of crazy, me and my girlfriends. But then, you know what? I said, wait a minute, that's not the story I want to tell. And on this particular date, at this particular time, I changed the direction of my life. I began to live and decide in a different direction. That's a better story to tell. And you're writing the story of your life. And it's going with you. And I don't want you to be a liar for life because of decisions you make now. Because that breaks somebody's heart. And I don't want you to be somebody else's regret, right? When they tell their story, when your name comes up, I want them to say good things about you, don't you? And let's face it, when your name comes up, they're going to say something about you. You know they will because you say something about the people in your past. And you're deciding what they're going to say. And I don't want you to be somebody's regret. I want you to be somebody's, oh yeah, I'm sorry it didn't work out, but he was such a great guy. She was so great, and her family, and isn't that what you want said about you? And guys, I don't want you to be a hypocrite. And here's what I mean by that. If someone did unto your sister as you do unto the girls you date, you may want to do something unto them. If someone did unto your niece or your single mom as you do unto the girls you date, you may want to do something unto them. I don't want you to be a hypocrite. I don't want you to expect one thing for the people you love and treat women different than what you would want a man to treat the women that you love. I just don't want you to be a hypocrite. Here's what I know about you. You don't like hypocrites. It's one of the reasons you don't go to church. The church is full of hypocrites. So maybe you're right. Don't join us, okay? Right? I mean, don't let there be duplicity. Don't live a double life. Don't live with a double standard because ultimately that hurts you and that hurts other people. And that just kind of breaks my heart because it sets you up for trouble that you don't need in the future. And ladies, and I don't like to really talk to ladies. I've never been one, okay? So I realize as soon as I move in this direction, I step out on very thin ice, so I'll just kind of put out there and head backstage. But ladies, I don't want you to be treated like a commodity. Or let me say it the harsher way. I don't want you to allow yourself to be treated like a commodity. And many times, it's your decision. And you know what a commodity is? A commodity is something that's bought and sold and traded and sometimes eventually just discarded. And maybe depending on your life and culture and the way you've managed your relationships, maybe you started to feel a little bit like a commodity. I don't want you to feel that way. I want you to feel like someone who has extraordinary value and extraordinary worth, not just based on what God says about you, but based on the way that men treat you. And men, I want you, and this is kind of an old-fashioned word too, I want you to step up. I want you to be gentlemen. See, gentle men is powerful. Self-control is powerful. Deferring to the wishes of another person is powerful. Kindness is powerful. Grace and mercy is powerful. And ladies, don't you wish there were more gentlemen? And ladies, I wish you would do whatever you have to do, whatever is in your control to decide. I am no longer going to allow myself to be mistreated because that just hurts you. If you get accustomed to being mistreated, eventually you begin to define yourself that way. And I realize that these values clash, and I realize that in our culture, it's very difficult to think that it'll ever be different than it currently is. But this series is about helping you begin to think differently about yourself and about your future. Now, there are two myths that kind of drive all this confusion relationally, especially when it comes to how we manage our sexuality and how we do dating and relationships, and even within the context of marriage. And like most myths, once you surface a myth and look at it, you realize, well, that's just ridiculous. But these two myths actually kind of sit in the undercurrent of our thinking and our assumptions about relationships. In fact, they are really unexplored assumptions. And in any area of life, financially, business, whatever you might do, whenever there's an unexplored assumption, it's a very dangerous thing, because an unexplored assumption will inform your decisions, but you don't know it's informing your decisions, and you make bad decisions. And these two relational myths inform so many of the decisions in our culture, and honestly, everything in our culture fuels these myths. But as soon as I state them, you're gonna go, oh yeah, that's ridiculous, that's not true. But here's my challenge to you today as we start this series. These two myths for many of us actually drive our relationship decisions. The first one is this. You may have heard me talk about it before. I just call it the right person myth. The right person myth is not that there's not a right person for you. The right person myth is this, that once you meet the right person, everything will be all right. And all the married people grumble and go, yeah, that ain't true. That ain't true. Because I met him, it's not true. It's not, you're right. The myth is that once you meet the right person, everything's just gonna be all right, regardless of what you do between now and then. The myth is this: I can play around, I can do whatever I want, I can treat guys the way I want, girls the way I want, I can just do whatever I want. But when I meet the right person, everything's gonna change. The past disappears. So you think your problem is you just haven't met them yet. Or you met them and moved in with them, or you met them and you married them, but now things aren't all right anymore. And you are slowly coming to the conclusion that you must have chosen the wrong right person. And now you are looking for who? You're looking for the next right person. And when I say it that way, it sounds ridiculous. But let's be honest. This way of thinking fuels our relationship decisions. And oftentimes it informs the direction that we take when it comes to relationships. That I'm unhappy because I'm with the wrong person. You're unhappy because you're with the wrong person. So you just need to find the right person, then everything's going to be all right. That is a myth. That once you find them, everything's going to be just fine, right? In fact, not only is everything going to be fine, here's the deeper part of the myth. The assumption is that once you find the right person, everything's going to be fine, including you. That you think somehow you're going to quit all those bad habits. You're not going to be interested in porn anymore once you meet the right person, right, guys? That your insecurity is just going to go away. Your financial, bad habits, they're just going to go away because you're going to find somebody with a little coin and he's going to kind of help you manage all that. And it's just going to get better. If I could just meet the right person, not only is everything going to be all right, I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be a better person. I love the line in Casey Musgrave's song, thinking we will be fixed by someone else. Thinking we'll be fixed by someone else. Oftentimes, this fuels this crazy myth. And this idea, as crazy as it is, and even on the surface, you're like, yeah, that is crazy. This idea, it infects our decisions. And it fuels our fantasies. And here's what I mean by fuels our fantasies. When you think about the future, as you begin to daydream about what if, and if only I had stuck with her, and if only I had married him, and if only, and next time, if only, what fuels your fantasies is this: not becoming a better person. What fuels your fantasies is finding the right person. And it is a myth. Because, as you know, there is more, right? You're adults. There's more. There's more to a satisfying relationship than finding or even being found. We just don't hear much about this. This does not make great film. This does not make great television series. This doesn't make great reality TV. What makes great reality TV and what makes great film is people falling in love. That's what the whole movie's about. They finally find each other. You know they're supposed to be together. It takes an hour and 45 minutes for them to figure it out. And then they figure it out and they're together. And then what happens? The movie's over. We love being entertained by people falling in love. But here's what we know about falling in love, because we're adults. Falling in love requires a pulse. Falling in love requires a pulse. If you have a pulse, you can fall in love. staying in love requires so much more, and this series is about the so much more. But of course, we're not entertained by the so much more. It's nobody's fault. It's just kind of the way it is. The second myth I call the promise myth. There's the right person myth and the promise myth. This myth maintains that basically when it comes to satisfying, long-term relationships, that all we need to do is make a promise. That when it comes to relationships, a promise actually replaces the need for preparation. That a promise replaces the need for preparation. That you can commit, promise, or vow your way into a healthy, satisfying, mutually satisfying relationship. That you can vow or promise or commit your way into a successful future, which is ridiculous. And that everything that came before can be overcome with two things: a promise and a party. A promise and a party. You're going to stand at an altar and make a promise, then you're going to have a big party. The past disappears. You're going to be a brand new person, a completely different kind of person, and you can promise or commit or vow your way into the future, and your spouse, your fiance can promise or commit or vow his or her way into the future as well. But promises, you know this, right? Again, you surface these myths. It's like, yeah, that can't be true. Promises are never a substitute for preparation, right? We know this in every other arena of life except relationships. We know this in academics. You can't promise yourself to a degree. You have to study. In sports, business, medicine, discovery, business preparation for a presentation. I mean, in every single arena of life, we know that in order to win, you have to prepare. I mean, no college basketball coach or no college football coach would substitute promises for practices, right? Come on into the locker room. We're just going to promise each other we're going to win. They wouldn't even substitute, right? They wouldn't even substitute, emotional, passionate pep talks in the locker room for practice, because practice is how you win games. Every coach knows you don't promise to win games. What do? You have to prepare to win. And this is true in your relationships. But who teaches us to prepare, or who prepares us for relationships? Nobody. Every single day we're told if you just fall in love with the right person, everything's going to be all right. And it's a myth. In fact, rationally, you know it's not true. And the whole idea that you don't have to prepare for something to win in something, you know that's not true, which means, and this is kind of tough to say, that when it comes to relationships, commitment is way overrated. Let me put it this way. I do doesn't mean you can. Saying I do, in fact, you know this because you have been to weddings, haven't you? You've been to weddings, you sat sort of toward the back, and they got up there, and I'll love you forever and ever, you're my sweetest, and they wrote their own vows, and they got lyrics of songs in there, and music's playing, and you're sitting in the back going, take luck. You good luck. What are the odds of this? I mean, you're not trying to be negative. You don't want to be negative. Here's what you know intuitively. You know they're not prepared. They're not prepared because they haven't been honest. They're not prepared because they haven't dealt with their bad habits. They're not prepared because they're immature. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, a lot of it beyond their control. You just kind of know the odds of them making it. I mean, they mean well. It was a great party. Oh my goodness, and their vows were beautiful. But come on, we're adults. You don't vow your way into a successful future relationally. You have to prepare. Listen, especially if you've never been married. Saying I do does not make you capable. Saying I do makes you accountable. Saying I do doesn't make you capable, it makes you accountable. And here's the bad news. When you're accountable, but not capable, you're miserable. When you're accountable, I'm stuck in this, but I don't know what to do with this, and I don't know how to fix it, and I don't know how to make it better, you're just miserable. So here's a brilliant statement. I mean, it's amazing, my intellect. If you aren't preparing, you won't be prepared. I probably need to explain that. I mean, it's pretty deep. Let me go slow, right? I mean, again, it's just kind of common sense, but I'm telling you, you know this. When it comes to relationships, common sense is not common. We just ignore all the rules that we employ in every other arena of life. I want you to be prepared. And for those of you that are in a relationship or you're married, I want you to start preparing because you're in. And yes, you love her, and yes, you love him, and you have kids together, and you're wondering, can we fix this? Of course you can. But you don't fix it by just trying to, do what you did in the beginning and try to keep falling back in love with each other. There's a way forward, and that's why we're doing this series. Now, this is where the message of Jesus just comes alive. This is where following Jesus makes all the difference right now in this world, in this life, in your current relationship. You've heard me say so many times, following Jesus will make your life better. Following Jesus will make you better at life. Well, following Jesus will make your life better, and following Jesus will make you better at relationships. It'll make you a better boyfriend, a better girlfriend, a better husband, a better wife, a better parent, a better fiance, a better future husband, a better future wife. That following Jesus will make you better at life. In fact, following Jesus will make you better at life before you come to the conclusion as to whether or not you believe Jesus is the Son of God. Because Jesus left us with one relational principle that is so extraordinarily powerful, so defining. It's kind of the driving force behind everything else that we're going to say throughout this series. Because whereas the teachings of Jesus won't help you find the right person, primarily because people had arranged marriages back when Jesus came along, and by the time they were 13, it was all said and done. It was all buttoned up. I mean, you didn't have much choice. But following Jesus, this is the game changer. Following Jesus will help you become the person. It's why every once in a while, maybe you've had this experience, you meet someone from your past. You knew them in high school, you knew them in college, you knew them in graduate school, you knew them at a previous job maybe. And years go by and you run back into them and they're different, and they're good different. I mean, they're kind of cleaned up and buttoned up, and their eyes are clear, and there's happiness on their face. They seem to have their life together. And you start asking questions, and you discover they became a Jesus follower, and they're different. They didn't meet somebody new. They became somebody new. It's why sometimes when you meet people from the past, it's like you became a different person. Following Jesus will help you become the kind of person that the person you're looking for is looking for. Following Jesus will help you become the kind of person that the person who was hoping for was hoping for. Following Jesus will help you become. Years ago, when I first began putting together this material, the first time I presented it to many of you, about 10 years ago, it's been almost 10 years, it's hard to believe. I just had some conversations with some 20-year-olds in our organization, and a young lady shared a story. She said, I was at home, my mom was ironing, I was sitting on the bed, and I was going on and on and on and on and on about this guy I had met at this party, and he was incredible in his job, and he was good looking, and she said, I was telling her that he was a Christian. And that he was like, Mom, I mean, he's like your kind of Christian, Mom. Like, he's the real deal Christian. Like, he doesn't just talk it, but he was talking about Jesus at this party, and I could tell his faith is real. And she was going on and on about this guy. He was just incredible. And she said her mom stopped ironing and set the iron on the ironing board and looked at her. And she said, honey, the problem is a guy like that is not looking for a girl like you. And she said, I literally fell to the floor and began to weep. This was years ago. And that was the defining turning moment in her life when she realized that's right. My whole approach to relationships has been, I'm going to find someone. It never crossed my mind I needed to become someone. My whole approach, every message I've gotten from culture is, if I can find the right person, everything will be all right. It never dawned on me that I need to become the kind of person that the person I'm dreaming of, hoping for, is actually looking for. Which brings us to this question for all of us, married, single, students, graduates, whatever season of life you're in. Are you the person? Are you the person you're looking for is looking for? Are you just looking, or are you becoming? And Jesus says, follow me, you'll become. If you're married, here's your version. Are you still the person? Are you still the person they were looking for? Are you still the person they were hoping for? Or have you allowed life and kids and money and stuff and busyness and business to get in the way of what you were becoming, of the person he or she believed she was entering a relationship with? So Jesus steps into the pages of history. We don't have time, but we can't even begin to imagine the culture he stepped into. Slavery was not only just legal, no one had never crossed anybody's mind that a person couldn't own another person. Prostitution was a way of life. Prostitution was birth control for the Romans and the Greeks because they didn't want to keep adding kids to their family and dividing the money. I mean, the world that they stepped into is unimaginable. And in spite of that, Jesus introduces a brand new relational paradigm, that was a game changer beginning in the first century and eventually got the attention of the Roman world and became central in the life of Rome. And since then has circled the globe. A relational paradigm that is simple, it's compelling, it's demanding, of course it is, and it's also rewarding. And here's the coolest thing if you're not a Christian. When understood correctly, and unfortunately the church has made this more complicated than it needs to be, but when understood correctly, Jesus' relational paradigm is so powerful that you're going to want the message of Jesus to be true even before you believe it's true. Because it's almost too good to be true. In fact, it is too good to be true unless Jesus is who Jesus claimed he was. And there's no reason for us to believe he was who he claimed he was, except for one simple event. His resurrection that changed everything and put everything and reframed everything that he taught. So toward the end of his ministry, Jesus is gathered with his guys and he's going to kind of give them this is part of that last minute, if you forget everything else, remember this pep talk. And these words I'm about to read to you that Jesus said, they didn't even understand what he was talking about. They could not understand this until after the resurrection. And as complex as it seems to us because we live in a different world, his words were so clear and they're so specific. And at the end of this passage, as I walk you through it, he gives us kind of our marching orders. He gives us kind of the North Star by which we should guide all of our relationships. And then we're going to come back next week and kind of tease it out and look at the details. Here's what he said. And he begins with an illustration that they were totally dialed into that we're immediately like, huh? Here's what he said. He said, I am the true vine. I'm like a vine. And my Father, God, is the gardener. And whenever Jesus told a parable, there's a God part, there's a Jesus part, and there's an us part. He says, okay, guys, here's how I want you to think about your relationship with me. I'm like a vine. Now, they understood grapevines. They totally got it. I'm the vine, and my heavenly Father is the gardener, the one that's tending the vine. He, God, cuts off every branch that's plugged into me, the vine, that doesn't bear any fruit. Why? Because the goal of Jesus and the goal of this whole conversation is to explain how people get connected to Jesus and Jesus bears fruit through them. He says, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes it. Why? So there will be more fruit. So the goal clearly is some kind of fruit bearing, to which we say, what's the fruit? And he's going to tell us in just a minute. By the way, your life is bearing fruit too. Everybody's life bears fruit. It's your reputation. It's the outcome of your decisions. It's that story that you like to tell and the story that you don't like to tell. So the idea of our lives having a wake of broken relationships or healthy relationships or debt or financial security, we all have a wake. We've all borne fruit in our life. And Jesus is talking about something that's familiar yet unfamiliar because he's saying, I want you to allow me to bear fruit through you. So he says, here's what you got to do. And this is all relationship language. Remain in me, and I also remain in you. In other words, this is just his way of saying, stay close to me, stay connected to me, follow me. And then he tells us why. He says, you need to stay close to me and follow me because no branch can bear fruit by itself. It's got to remain in the vine. Again, he's talking about something so familiar. If you take the branch off the vine, the branch dies, it doesn't bear any fruit. He says, if you're going to bear the fruit I want you to bear, you've got to stay plugged into me. And now the application. Neither can you, he would say to John and to Matthew and to Andrew sitting there. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain connected or plugged in to me. That we can't bear fruit the way that Jesus wants us to bear fruit unless we lean into him, or to use another word Jesus used, continue to follow him. And then he says to them what they've already figured out. By the way, guys, he goes slow for them. He doesn't want them to miss it. I am the vine. You've already said that. And you guys are these branches I'm talking about. And if you remain plugged into me and I in you, this is so cool. I want to make you a promise, he says. You're going to bear much fruit. You're not going to bear much fruit because you're going to learn how to be a fruit bearer. You're going to bear much fruit because you're plugged into and following me. It's why when you met that guy or that girl from your past, they were so different. And when you asked them, what's going on? They didn't talk about, I got up every morning, made a list of 5 things I'm going to become, and by golly, I became them. They just make it simple. They say, well, they don't even know how to explain it to you sometimes. It's just, well, I started going to church and then started reading my Bible and basically discovered they became a Jesus follower and they're just different and they're not even sure they can explain it. This is the promise of Jesus. Plug into me, stay close to me, follow me, and one day you'll realize you have become something new. You've become something different. People will say you've become something better. And then he defines what he means by fruit. And this is so powerful. He says, just as the Father, this is it's amazing that he makes this comparison. Just as the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. It's like, wait. Okay, you changed the subject. Okay, we're talking about gardens and fruit and vines. Okay, well, we're now talking about love. He's like, just hang with me. I'm getting there. Just as the Father has loved me, just as the Father has demonstrated his love through me, I have demonstrated the Father's love through you. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to remain in my love. The same word he used to talk about the branch staying connected to the vine. So it's like, wait, so God's the gardener, you're the vine, I'm the branch, I'm to stay connected to you. And when I think about staying connected to you, I'm supposed to stay connected to your love. Exactly. And and then here's the surprise. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love. To which we say, I knew it was a bait and switch. This is just all about commands and rules. I knew it. It was so relational. It was so warm and fuzzy, and something's going to happen in me. And one day my wife's going to go, you're the man of my dreams after all. I'm just going to become. And then you do what every church person does. Now we're going to talk about the 10 commandments or some new commands. And I'm sure the guys sitting there with Jesus are like, great. I thought we were headed down a new direction, but you're saying if you keep my commandments, you'll remain in my love. To which they're thinking, okay, you're Jesus, we're with you. So what are the commands? Somebody write these down. I bet there's a bunch of them. And here's the shocker. Here's why you should follow Jesus. Here's why you should consider follow Jesus even if you're not sure who Jesus is. Jesus smiles, I think, and he says, okay, I'll tell you. John, write this down. My command is this. Okay, wait. Vine and branch, we're plugging in, it's all about back and forth, and somehow it's all about the Father's love. And now we're talking about commands, and now you're saying there's just one command. Right. Just one command. All right, what's your command? Love each other. We don't even need to write that one down. We've heard that so many times, that's not new. To which Jesus would say, hang on, I'm not through. Because this isn't just about love the one you're with. This isn't just about love. This isn't about, if we just all get along and love each other. No, Jesus said, remember, this is vine and branch. This is a different kind of love. This is a very specific kind of love. I don't want you to just be more loving. I want you to love specifically. I want you to have a focused love. Here's the kind of love I want you to have. I want you to love each other as because this is about a relationship with me. I want the love that you have seen demonstrated towards you. I want that same brand. I want that same type. I want that same combination, that same formula of love to flow through you. I want you to love as I have loved you. Now, I'm telling you, sitting in the room that night, they had some idea of what he was talking about. But a few days later, Jesus would put on a demonstration of love, take their breath away, because it would take his breath away. And on the other side of the resurrection, it's like, this isn't some kind of permissive figuring it out on your own kind of love. This is the kind of love where you put the other person first. This is the kind of love where you lay down your life for a friend. This is the kind of love where you defer to the wishes and the thoughts of the other person. This is the kind of love where you forgive regardless of what's been done and regardless of the offense. This is the kind of love that takes everything I have going for me and makes it available for you. This is the kind of love where I do unto you as my Father through Christ has done unto me. This is what Jesus means by abiding in him. It's not complicated. It's not super intangible, super spiritual. It is about learning how and allowing the love that God has for you to flow to others, specifically to those with whom you have a relationship. St. Augustine, by the way, St. Augustine is in Florida. St. Augustine is in heaven. Just want to clear that up, okay? St. Augustine makes this comment based on this unique, focused, Christ-like kind of love. He says this, he wrote this. He said, love and then basically do whatever you want. Love and do as thou wilt. Once you understand that the framework for all of your relationships, the framework and the guiding force and the guiding principle, the North Star of your behavior toward the people around you, the people that you're raising, the people that you live with, the people that you're married to, as long as you know the North Star is my behavior will be monitored through and looked at through the filter and the grid of God's love for me as demonstrated in Christ. He says, once you have that down, you'll figure everything out. That this is how you become. This is how you become a person worth looking for. This is how you shift gears from just finding. And if you're married, controlling, and conforming, and pressuring. And if I can just ever get her to act the way I want her to act, I'll be happy. And if I could ever get him to stop and to start and to begin and to stop, if I could just get him shaped into the image of what I want, then I would be happy. And Jesus says, that's never going to work. I have an idea. Just follow me and learn from me. In another place, he says, because I'm gentle and I'm humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, and you will find peace in your relationships. Because I want to teach you how to love as I've loved. And I'm telling you, when two people get on board with this, when two people embrace this approach to relationship, it's amazing what happens. This is how you become a person worth finding, but this is how you become a person worth staying for. This is, as we're going to see, this is how you prepare to commit. This is how you prepare to stay committed. This is how you make whatever relationship you're in better, because both people are becoming, and they're becoming in the same direction. And as we'll discover next time, there's fine print. Here's the thing that may blow your mind if you're not a Christian or you're new to this whole thing. That the kind of person that Jesus wants to lead you to become, if you become one of his followers, is actually the kind of person we're all ultimately looking for and all ultimately want to be or to become. That what you're going to discover when you open the pages of the New Testament, and as we look at what Jesus says specifically, you're going to discover, oh, well, that's sort of the kind of person I wanted to be anyway. Oh, well yeah, I would love to meet a person who loved me like God through Christ loved him or her. And yeah, I would love to think, it seems far off to me, and I can't imagine ever getting there, but I would love to think that I'm that kind of person. Now, I get criticized for this sometimes. If what you've heard me say is it's just all about love, that's not what I've said, because that's not what Jesus said. And if the whole idea of just love, we're just going to love each other, it seems so permissive, it seems so undefined, it seems like anything goes, then you don't understand God's love as exemplified through Christ. So what we're going to do next time, this is going to be fun. In fact, the next 2 weeks are going to be extremely practical, is we're going to look at the fine print, because there's always fine print, right? But here's the cool thing. This fine print will make you fine. Okay? It will make you worth finding and keeping, no losing, and less weeping. Because when two people, this is why this is so important, when two people embrace the fine print, and when two people decide they're going to stay connected to the vine, the relationship gets better, and it gets fine. And it doesn't get better because they accidentally or magically found the right person. It gets better because they are becoming a better person, because following Jesus will make your life better. And I promise, following Jesus will make you better at life. So don't miss next week when we look at the fine print. Now, before that though, I want to give you something to talk about in the car. If you're married, be careful with these questions, okay? I want you to have a nice ride home. If you're in a small group, it's safe to talk about these things in the small group. You may want to take a picture of these questions. They're going to be on all of our social media. But here's the 3 questions I want you to wrestle with during the week before we come back next time. And here they are. What are or what were the top 3 things you are or were looking for in the person that you're looking for? And if you're married, again, you got to be careful with this because you're like, oh yeah, you're all 3. You get an A+, okay? But I just want you to think about what were or what are the 3 things that you're looking for. Number 2, do you measure up to those 3 things? Let's not be hypocrites. I mean, if I want it in her, I need to see it in me. If you want it in him, you need to see it in you. And then the third question is to list 3 things that come to mind when you think about Jesus' love for you, and what would it look like to extend those same 3 things to someone else? That's what it means to be plugged in to the vine. So what were you looking for? Are you doing that for someone else? What does this look like in terms of what God's done for you? And what would that look like in your relationships with others? And we will pick the discussion up there next week. I'd love to pray for you, and then we'll take off. Father, thank you for preserving these teachings. Thank you for your extraordinary love. Now give us wisdom to know what to do, and then give us the courage to walk out of here and do it. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Hey, a couple quick things before you go. Reminder, you have until 1 o'clock today, less than an hour from now, to join a new community group if you're looking for that. If you're a college student and you're new to town or you're trying to make this semester a little bit better than the last one, I really want you to join a group. I really want you to find your people tonight. But the last thing is we're going to give you this card on the way out, a simple invite card, because you probably know somebody who could benefit from the next 5 weeks of this series. And so I'd love for you to take this and give it to somebody. Bring them, invite them to meet you here next week. And what's cool about this card is on the back, it kind of gives you a little preview of each week. So I think every week is good for everybody, but like married couples, like the next 2 weeks are perfect for married couples. College students, you're required to come to all 6. But Valentine's Day, okay? 5 rules of dating with Andy Stanley. It's going to be amazing. That day is going to be lit, as the kids say these days. So take this, invite somebody. We'll see you back here next week for part 2 of Love Dates and Heartbreaks.
Here with the squad, everybody trying to go, yeah, the party jumping off, hey, we putting on a show, trying to catch a vibe, we do this every time, like, na 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 na, feeling like I'm on the highway, cause everything been going my way, and now they looking at me sideways, I'm like, na 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 na, this is where I wanna be, na na na, never ever gonna leave. A party, make a toast, it's a party every day. So anywhere you go, all across the coast, we do it every time, like na 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 na.